There's only two things in life, excuses and results, and excuses don't matter. You're gonna do it or you're not. And with your team as a leader, you gotta make sure they're doing the little things every day to make it happen. And I give the description when I'm talking to my team. As a leader, I'll tell them, I'll say, hey, go look at that door. That door's, 6 foot tall and 3 foot wide. And if you look, there's 3 hinges on that door. On a 6 foot door, there's 15 total inches of hinges holding that door up. So it's those little things that swing the big things in life. The little things make the big interactions happen. So if you're doing those little things each and every day, you're gonna swing them big doors and make the big things happen.
Welcome to another episode of the A1 Experience. You guys are in for a treat because I've got one of my best buds in the space, man. Since I met this guy, it's been nothing but good vibes. I appreciate his energy. The man has just been a huge bundle of just love, I guess, right? He just shows so much people love. Allstate legacy agent. That means that he comes from the business. His dad was an agent that started in 1967. Wild.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about his story on how he purchased his dad's agency and is still running it strong in Galveston, Texas. 70% of his business comes from COIs, which is impressive. And excited to have you, bro.
Excited to be here, man.
Man. So tell the audience a little bit about your story, and I'm very curious to hear what it was basically like to be born with your father already in this business. The first of its kind, at least on this show.
Super unique. So my dad started as an Allstate agent November 19th, 1967. So he graduated from the University of Texas, came home and was trying to get a job. Back then on Galveston Island, there was a beer company called Falstaff Brewery that was like a huge beer company back in those days. My grandfather and my great uncle worked there. So my dad couldn't get a job there. He applied, and they had like nepotism rules back then. He tried to get on the railroad, and again, we had a family member. We're a big Irish family. We came from Ireland in 1890 straight to Galveston. And my grandfather had 13 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
So, and we've been on the island ever since. And so my dad was trying to get hired on at the railroad, couldn't get hired on there. And he just happened to be at a bar one night talking to some buddies, and the lady behind the bar said, my dad's an Allstate agent and or an Allstate manager, and said they're looking for agents. And so he applied. And my whole life, I grew up in an Allstate agency. Back when they had index cards that your policy information was on, like it was, you'd get like a little piece of paper like this, and it said your name, address, what your policy was, and then they went to microfiche, and I remember as a kid going into his office. Back then they'd have 4 agents in an office, and they'd have one lady working like as a secretary, is what they called it back then, and then they had these microfiche things. And so I grew up in the agency. So when I graduated from college, I looked at opportunities and realized that I wanted to go to work for my dad, and I wanted to get in the insurance industry. I love the fact that it's all about connecting with people. I love the fact that it's providing a product that helps people in their worst time, right? When you get in a bad situation, I think it's wonderful to have somebody there to be able to come help you and put you back to the place you were prior to the loss. So started with him in January of 97 when I graduated from college. In 2008, we formed a partnership. And then in 2012, I bought the agency from him.
Did he retire at that point?
He did not. So in 2012, when I bought the agency, he stayed for another couple of years. When I bought the agency from him is when we had transitioned from the old All-Star system to the new Windows base. And he was not wanting to get into the technology, kicking and screaming, right? He's like, he didn't want to learn anymore.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
History repeats itself.
Yeah, it does, right? And that was funny enough is in 2008. So in 2006 is when I started my journey to learn more. I knew at that point that my dad and I were in a place or in a space to where that you were only learning so much from the managers. And at that point in time, there was, if you remember, PPC Loan, they did a 3-day conference in Dallas. And I got one of the either flyers or emails or whatever. And I told my dad, I'm going to go here. I want to learn. And then that's when I met Bill Goff, who had a coaching and mentoring program at the time. I signed up with him. I was like, I need to become insatiable with my appetite to get more knowledge on how to be better at our business, like constantly sharpening the saw. So that's in 2006. I started doing that. In 2008, when we partnered, it was funny because they would call us, you know, how we have the territorial or managers meetings where they want all the agents to come up. And, you know, my dad was still the agent of record. So I would go to one of the luncheons and they're like, Sean, what are you doing here? Is, you know, your dad's supposed to be here. And I'd say, well, do you want the guy that wants to learn the stuff that you're about to talk about? Or do you want the guy in the room that doesn't care what you're saying and they'll probably walk out early? They're like, yeah, just write your name on that card. Come on in. Yeah. So it was a big shift and change. And then 2012, when I bought it, he stayed on for a couple of years. As a matter of fact, you know, it's 2024. He still comes in the office. He's 81 years young, and he still comes in the office at least 3 to 4 times a week, just to stop by, see how everything's doing. If we have any mail to go to the post office, or if there's anything special we needed done, he'll come by and visit and hang out. And my agency manager started with him when she was 18 years old, and she's still in the agency today. She just celebrated her 34th anniversary of being with Allstate. So,
wow. Yeah. What made you want to get involved
in the agency?
Yeah.
Again, the connection, like the people. Like I saw my dad connecting with friends and family on the island, and people, meeting new people. I always enjoy meeting new people. I'm very extroverted. I love learning about people. I'm typically the guy, and it's been known a lot of times. Like I'll be with a group of friends somewhere, and we're all hanging out talking, and then I'll end up meeting somebody new. Like I'll go to get something from the counter or whatever, and somebody like, hey, I'm like, hey, what's up? Hey, what's your name? Nicholas. Where are you from, man? What's up? And then next thing I know, I'm 30 minutes talking to them. So to me, in life, connection is key. Making sure that you get to know somebody, you care about them, you learn about them, and you help them grow and they help you grow by doing that, right? I mean, the world is ever expanding. So
yeah. What I remember about you was some of my early interactions with you is, one, you've always liked and loved and supported anything I put out on social media. and then the first time I got to speak at CWC, it was in front of 600 people. And I've never spoken in front of 600 people before. I don't think I've ever spoken to more than 50 people at that point.
Wow.
And I go up there and I'm having tech issues, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you kidding me? Like nobody else had tech issues. Like why me, right? And so I remember you're one of the first people in the crowd, and I just look, every time I looked over at you, you're just vibing, and you're like, you just got this smile that just made me feel supported. You know what I mean? And so I appreciate you for that.
Absolutely. and that's huge, because I've spoken from stage before many times, and I will be when I retire from Allstate. I'm going to be a motivational speaker. So
love it.
I will be doing it again, and I know what it feels like to be there. So that connection, and I always sit in the front row too. So that connection, though, it means a lot, because I care about you. I think you're an awesome guy, and you were presenting. And when you're having difficulties, you got to have somebody to have your back and be like, all right, man, come on, let's go.
Yeah. Insurance agents. What is every agency's highest closing lead source without fail? Personal referrals. What if I told you I could help you turbocharge the frequency in which you got personal referrals? In the last 5 years, I've written over 5,000 items and $3.5 million in premium from inbound organic sources, and it cost me nothing. How? Because posting on social media is free. If you want to turn your agency into a referral machine, then go to nicksaka.com/creators and sign up for the Insurance Creators Mastermind, where me and my team will meet with you and your team twice a month to help you with something that no other agency is doing. Imagine having the guidance, the ideas, the trends, and the strategies that actually work in converting more business for your agency. Go to nicksaka.com/creators for more. Now, back to the show. A lot of people said that it wasn't as bad as it felt on stage. Like on stage, just this 60-second technical issue felt like an eternity.
Of course.
I'm like, I practiced the slides perfectly. Like I didn't plan for any sort of,
No one does.
I'm just trying to, and I'm a visual person, and I assume that, I think 80% of people are visual people, or 70, some,
It's
majority.
High. It's a high number, yeah.
So in your, 12 years of running the agency now, what has been some of the biggest challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them?
The number one is the same that you have and everybody else has. Employees.
Yeah.
Right? It's always hard. And again, Michelle's been with the O'Donohoe family for 34 years, which is impressive in itself. And the fact that she's still there, and the fact that it's still constant love, right? So it's constant love and appreciation to get them there. And the hardest thing is with the employees, your team members, is the ones that aren't bought in, that don't see the vision, that are just looking for a place to do the mediocre middle. And those are the hardest ones, because a lot of times you'll really like them as a person. Like, they're just a great person, but they're just not putting in the effort that they could be. So that's the number one struggle. The number two,
Do you let those folks linger around, or you usually cut them free?
I usually cut them free.
Because there's ebbs and flows. I currently literally have one right now.
Yeah, it has been my experience. I have not, you hear the phrase hire slow, fire fast. I'm not the fastest person to fire somebody, because there is that connection, and I want to like give them a second chance. I'm always, well, maybe they just had a bad month, or maybe, I'm always trying to get them there, but there's, deep down in your heart that they're not there. And Bill Goff told me one time, he goes, man, Odo, if you're laying in bed next to your wife and for 3 nights in a row, you're thinking about one of your employees at work,
It's time for him
and now
to
you're
go.
like, it's time for him to go. And it's so true.
I say something similar. I say, if they're disturbing my peace, which is the same thing.
Same thing.
If my peace is being disturbed, I'm in the gym and I'm thinking about like just this one person, it's like, yeah, this person's got to go. Like, they're just not a good fit. But I like that. That's probably a little bit better.
Here's the positive side of it too, that it was an aha moment for me when Craig Wiggins and I had a conversation about this. He said, Odo, they might be happier somewhere else and have a better fit. And that was a huge aha moment for me, because all I'm thinking about is, if I fire them, they no longer have income. They're having to try to find a place to work. And there's a lot of opportunities out there now. And when he said that, it was like, wow. And there are some people that ended up going, and where they are now, they're in a much better place. They're super happy. It was a better fit for them. So not everybody's cut out to do what we do, right?
Yeah. Sustainably too.
Sustainably, absolutely, because it's a treadmill. Like, especially on the sales side of the business. The service side of the business is still a treadmill, but the sales side is any industry is out there. It's always a treadmill. So
yeah. Staffing and marketing usually the top.
Oh, top two.
Top two.
Second thing was, for a legacy opportunity, and this is something that I want to share, that I'm sure, and this is what only legacy owners would have this thought process, but going from an employee to now owning the agency. So the people that you're in the room with used to be your coworkers. Now you're their boss. So that mental shift of taking those responsibilities and delegating them was difficult for me. Meaning, back when I was a team member, if it walked in the door, they called in, I caught them. I walked it from beginning to end. I did the quotes, I did the follow-up phone calls, I did everything. And that was a hard shift for me as an agency owner, to realize I'm not doing my job to my full potential, because I'm getting back into a job that is not under my resume or my requirements of what I need to be doing, right? I mean, there is an opportunity when your agency is smaller where you're still in the weeds. But as you grow and you get more team members, focusing on helping them, growing them, getting them better, sharpening their saws, and helping them make more money it's a mindset shift for a legacy owner, or for anybody who is started out as a team member and then maybe buys the agency from the agent. That was a little bit of a struggle for me.
That's a transition for sure.
It is.
Like, I used to be a business banker, and I'm 24, 25, meeting with these business owners, and I got the babyest looking face, and so I'm suited and booted to try and look older, and I'm pitching them on getting lines of credit for working capital and lending. And I've never owned a business, nothing is right. What do I know, right? And you probably didn't have manager experience before owning the agency. It was just employee, LSP, or agent to owner.
I technically had the title of a manager in that interim, like 2008 when we formed the partnership. but I still was an LSP. I mean,
Glorified
it was
LSP.
it was a glorified LSP. That's all it was. And because my dad was the agency owner, and so the hard part was, I had a manager and title, but I didn't have the respect. It was like, you should be doing as much as I'm doing. Mentality, which was not healthy, right, for the whole agency. It would have been different if I would have like come in as a manager,
Right.
Didn't work with them before. So,
and you're also the son, so it's just like
That
maybe there's a perception that he had it handed to him on a golden
Oh, for sure.
platter.
Yeah, for
kind of
sure.
perception as well, right?
Yeah.
Why should we listen to this guy?
yeah,
Right.
yeah. I guarantee you, there's people out there that think my dad gave the agency to me, and I would love to show them the checks that I sent every single month that was not given to me. So,
Right.
it was bought and paid for with my blood, sweat, and tears. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's going to be helpful, especially because a lot of my audience, they're agency owners, but I notice there's a lot of LSPs and agents and people that are newly licensed that tune into my channel. That's like the large majority of my subscribers. And I think that not all, but a few of them do want to be an agency owner. And so just hearing, it's really no different, even though it was clearly, legacy, it's passed off by your dad, but everything else was the same. You paid for it.
yeah,
You had to learn basic skills. You had to take it over.
yeah.
Technology, your dad was just out. I'm pretty sure your dad wasn't learning all the new things.
No way.
It was
Yeah.
you at that point. He probably helped mitigate the impact from the customers.
Yeah.
But
He was a buffer. Yeah. So
Yeah.
he was great about
he went on to retire. I'm his son. Stay. Don't go nowhere.
that. Helped. That helped a lot.
Because I buy an agency and I'm like, yeah, he went on to retire and to go do the Lord's work, or something.
Yeah,
I got to make this sound good so they don't leave.
Like, look, man, everybody's got to retire sometime, but we're real good friends. So just stay here. I'll take care of you. Yeah.
Yeah, you got some
No.
OG agent, been in the game forever, and then all of a sudden my grill is showing up on all their mail and email signatures, and the rate increases are
this guy?
coincidentally going up.
Same time,
and it's
yeah.
all of a sudden it's my fault.
Of course. That's got to be a hard pill
Yeah.
to swallow, right? It's going to be a hard pill to swallow because it is. Across the board, it's like, oh, now this guy buys his agency and he's raising my rates.
It's his fault.
Yeah.
He's the reason. Who is this pipsqueak?
Pipsqueak. Nah, man, that beard's in full effect. You don't look like a pipsqueak.
I just gotta get. I got a child now, so I got a couple white hairs now, bro.
Oh, just wait. It'll get more.
Yeah, man. So I wanted to ask you, what are some of the biggest lessons your dad did and didn't teach you going into this?
Gosh, that's fantastic. I'm glad you asked that question. Some of the fantastic lessons would be, one was show up every day. Like, if you're not present, you're not making it. And I tell a story, like, my dad was really big, and you got to understand the mentality of Allstate and the agents and the way they were brought into agency ownership was the managers in home office would say, look, here's the deal, Nick. I want you to open this Allstate agency. We need an agency in this area. And by the way, look, you're just going to have to hustle like 3 to 5 years. And then you can take your foot off the gas and just, live off your renewals and coast.
And go golf.
And go
Every
golf.
day.
Yeah. So my dad was like, you show up at 9 a.m., you stay till 5, you take your hour lunch, the phone's going to ring. And it did. I'm telling you, back in those days, like seriously, you showed up at the office at 9 o'clock in the morning, your phone was ringing all flipping day long. I mean, all day. Like there was Allstate, State Farm. There wasn't any farmers around where we were. Nationwide wasn't part of it, And then all the rest, Progressive, Geico wasn't really like a competitor. So it truly was about showing up. And the funny thing is when I went to Chicago to do my agents training, that's when they were kind of switching the pitch on telling them, you can't just wait for that phone to ring. You got to show up in your office. You got to be calling out. You got to do everything. And the funny story is, so Brian O'Brien was the teacher. We went to lunch the first day we were there, and I noticed that there was a phone on the wall, and it had the phone number on it. And this is back when I had a little Nokia smartphone. So I took down that phone number because I knew he kept with that pitch of you can't wait for the phone to ring. So we go to lunch, we come back from lunch, and there's 70 new agents that are in here. We're in like this round table kind of, a auditorium style room. And so he gets up there and he's talking again. He goes like, you can't just wait for that phone to ring. And I hit the send, and all of a sudden it goes, brrr. He's like, he's in the middle of teaching a class. He's like, looks at the phone on the wall. He's like, he goes, hello? I said, say, man, can I buy some insurance?
Stupid.
So, I mean, there was a time back in the day where you could just wait for the phone to ring.
Yeah.
So,
But the day is not that day.
the day is not that day at all.
It's not.
It's changed. So, also, his true love of all the customers. I mean, he's very caring, very considerate, very thoughtful. I mean, he knows, like, their husband's wife's name, their kids' names.
That OG.
Oh, yeah. Like, the old
Southern
Irish
hospitality.
Mafia. No, Irish Mafia. Like, I know you. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Southern hospitality. We'll go with that. Southern hospitality.
It's a nice family you got there. Be ashamed if something happened to him.
He never did that. Not more than 3 times. So that part of that connection, right? That part of knowing who they are, where they're from, you know, that was something I learned about when I started talking to people. I would ask just because I heard my dad doing it. You know, I was like, where are you from? You know, where's your family? Where'd you go to school? You know, I would just ask all these questions, not really doing it for any other reason other than that's what my dad taught me to do.
And then later, this became a thing called building rapport.
Building rapport. Yeah, absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
before, it was just what you did, right?
Yeah. It was the Irish connection. You just, hey, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. You know, get to know one another. So I will say one of the things that I wish would have been on his radar earlier, which would have, I think, helped me move higher faster, was accountability on our monthly metrics and our daily metrics and weekly metrics. We didn't do that back then. Like, we didn't, I mean, you definitely didn't have call volume. I mean, the old Southwestern Bell telephone, there's no reports. You can't pull that kind of information. The quote activity, I mean, there was something in All-Star back in the day when you could pull that information up, but I would have appreciated and learned quicker, faster if he would have had that monthly, weekly, whatever. Okay, Sean, you wrote X. Michelle, you wrote X. You know, go through all the names of all the team members, and then us focusing on a goal as opposed to, look, your butt needs to be in this seat from 9 to 5. So that is one of the things I wished he would have learned or found out about or something ahead of time.
Yeah.
That could have helped me transitioning into this.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Right. But he comes from such a older time, like 1967 is when he started. It's like, it's insane. I can't even, to me, old school Allstate is like if he started in 2000.
Yeah, right?
You know, it's like 67.
Yeah.
So.
Before I was born.
Yeah.
A few years before you were born, too.
Yeah. So.
way before.
Way before I was born. Yeah. What was considered a mega agency in the year 1990?
There was.
Or 1995 or 2000.
I think megas started out at 6,000 policies in force. Was when the coined phrase of mega came out. I think it was 6,000 policies in force.
Okay.
Like, so if you hit that number, you were mega.
Big dog,
You're
yeah.
a big dog. And that's true. I mean, it's a majority of the marketing and the clients that you wrote back in those days were in your community.
Right. Yeah. It's
you
not
know,
like you were hitting the whole state of Texas.
No.
There's no internet lead companies. Is there even a phone book?
Yeah, there was a phone book. And that's what we call dollar for dollars. You just open a phone book, you know, and you just started calling names. You know, yeah, there was no TCPA compliant stuff. I mean, again, had I known this back then, like, I'd have been a mega agent the first year and a half. I mean, right? I mean, you could. It was the Wild West back then. It was no holds barred. You could call them. You know, you could mail them. There was no email back. I mean, email was like in its infancy, right? I mean, it as far as marketing is concerned and contacts and that kind of stuff.
I gotta admit, like, I don't know how many more changes could happen for me to be motivated to keep going too. If it's like 10, 15 years, I mean, just the changes in the last 5 years have been like, wow, that's interesting, you know?
Yeah.
And then the conspiracies start coming out. It's like, are they trying to get agents, you know, out and go the direct line and all this stuff? And when you look at all the changes, like I said, it's hard to stomach some of them because of how this agency ownership was pitched to us at one point, which was build it up, coast.
Yeah.
Like you said.
It was. And here's the deal, though. I know this. And back in the day, they talked about 40% of the customers want to have a face-to-face interaction. 40% of the customers would rather go online and do everything online. There's 20% in the middle that could go either way.
Yeah.
I feel, in my heart of hearts, that one-on-one connection is always going to be there for generations to come.
You know what I think? Sorry to cut you off.
No, you didn't cut me off. That's good.
I think if you want to have a foresight or a prediction of where insurance agencies are going, look at what the banks are doing. And I say that because I came from banking, and everything that the bank did, how they moved it, like they went from locations on every corner, in-store banking. I was in grocery stores and banks all over Las Vegas. And then they slowly started shutting a lot of them down, right? And this was before COVID. COVID just expedited.
It was way before COVID.
And now you go inside of a branch, and it's like customer service is awful. The lines, there's no sense of urgency to get you in and out of banks. They don't pitch financial services anymore, which is a huge opportunity for insurance agents. But I can't help but feel that insurance is like following in their footsteps, because the insurance industry, coming from banking for 7 years, insurance has slowly like mimicked some of their moves, and we're like a couple years behind them. So it's very interesting to see where the future of agencies will go, just based on what banks are doing.
Agreed.
I don't know. And that could just be just a wild, thought.
Like when they shut down the drive-through tellers, you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, you're doing what?
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. It got to a point where they had a one-store location, and you walked in and it was take a number, like Baskin Robbins ice cream back in the day,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
So, like, I'm just like, wow, where's this going? Like, and I had bankers that I knew, and I would go in and talk to them, and they're not there anymore. And that's where I talk about, I think that this is not going to go away, because these connections are every 800 number company that you work with. And, one time you get Susie, the next time you get Joe, the other time you get Kevin,
So frustrating.
and you have to repeat yourself over and over and over again.
The entire scoop, the entire scenario.
Yes. If as an agency, you differentiate yourself, you allow your opportunity to have access to you via text message and call you directly, and they know, hey, I'm calling for Nick. I need to talk to Nick. And they can get Nick because they have the experience and the expertise. There's a value to that, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
So they will pay more to have that. And we just need to change our mind, shift it to say, look, it's about quality. It's about the quality customer that we have that understands the value in what we provide. Because I know this happens to you, and it happens to me all the time. I had people call me up, and they're like, hey, man, dude, your rates went up, and, I called ABC Insurance Company, and they're going to save me, $100 a month. Okay. I mean, if you don't feel my value is worth $100 a month, then I obviously am not delivering the value that you think you should need.
Yeah.
But what I find is extremely humorous is as soon as the shit hits the fan for them, they're picking up the phone, calling me and going, hey, so I had this accident, and so what do I do? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm like, well, did you call your new ABC insurance company and talk to your agent there? Oh, well, I don't have an agent. It's an 800 number, and the kid didn't know what the hell he was talking about, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, you're not paying for this service, so,
Yeah.
I'll talk to you later. If you want to come back to me, we can have this conversation.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to do, but I think we have to draw the line in the sand and not provide that free advice unless you have a feeling that this would earn you the opportunity to get the business back.
Right.
But not letting somebody walk all over you and allow everything to be price-driven, price-motivated, and not find value in you, not understand that there is a place and a role that you have in their life when it comes to protecting all their assets.
Yeah. Well, you have an office
do.
location,
I do.
very probably, I imagine, vibrant. The team members show up. You got some remote staff?
I do now. So that has been a switch for me. It's been a change, and the reason being is the candidates
to.
in my local area, are
You
just
have
not
to.
there. I have to, yeah. So I have 3 team members that are in my office every day, and then I have 2 remote employees, and I'm in the process of hiring another remote. So not ideal for me because
Are they in Texas or?
So I have 1 remote in Texas, 1 remote in Oklahoma.
Okay.
And that was a learning lesson because they got to pay Oklahoma taxes, so I had to get all that set up. So that was a big aha moment for me when I was setting all this up with our payroll company. I was like, ooh.
All the extra little steps.
Yeah, we don't do that in Texas, so.
Yep. No, for sure. I know that we have to adapt to more remote, and I've adapted. I've made more remote hires than ever before, even though Las Vegas is pretty big. But I still like the in-office experience. That's why I invest so much to have this office, right, and all this space, because something about showing up here, I can't work from home, and a lot of my team members still choose to show up as well.
Yeah.
Even though they can work remote as well.
So my 2 team members, we do Google Meet or Zoom, whatever you want to, we use Google Meet. And where we enjoy that is it still gives us that facial interaction, the ability to communicate. We also can, have chat, so we can chat back and forth. It also, because the phone system that we have is the AAV, and it's not perfect. It's not.
It's trash.
There you go. Yeah, it's
Ring Central's a little bit better.
And we're getting ready to convert to Ring Central this month, but it's been so terrible that because we have a lot of walk-in customers, it's been hard for our remote employees to know that we're sitting at our desk with a customer if we didn't have the Google Meet, like if they couldn't see us. So when we're sitting at our desk and we have our monitors, the cameras here, they can see that, we're working, or, if they're on the phone, they can see this interaction. They also see when the chair is turned and they're facing this way, they're getting a side view of the person. They know, oh, somebody's in their office.
Gotcha.
So that's been a little bit of a learning experience as well, trying to figure out how to navigate that to go.
Remote isn't my main thing, and so we're learning it. But the biggest thing is making sure that they're licensed and preferably Allstate experience. But if they don't, I'm not picky.
Yeah, and the other thing about the remote is it gives those individuals that choose to do that. I mean, there's no transportation time to and from the office, right? So they buy that time back. The ability to be in their home and eat lunch, there at their house instead of, going out and spending money. So there's some value to them in that. But I'm with you. Preferably, I would have everybody in the office. The camaraderie is there,
Even
the
for
hoopla,
me,
the energy.
for social media too. Like being in office, it's hard for me to help somebody. It's harder for me to help somebody that runs a fully remote operation and they want to get better at social media.
Right.
Well, you're going to have to bring in some help to help you film this content, or you can film it yourself. But when you have an office environment,
you and your team, all your videos,
it makes posting content so much easier when you have an office space.
and fun when you can have your team members dress up in wigs. Like
Right.
the one time he had that wig on,
Yep.
and did the girls like me? That was funny. Yeah.
That one went viral.
I bet it
Super
did.
viral.
And you can't have this, right?
Yeah.
So you can't have this. You can't get in the last 3 feet and have this interaction and the feeling. I can see your facial features, your body language. You can do that on a remote, but it's not the same.
Well, that's why in-person events are so important.
Agreed.
That's why CWC has an in-person event.
Right.
Otherwise, it's like only so much you can do remotely. But energy is real, and nothing's going to replace that for sure.
And distraction too, right? Because if you, and I know you've done this and I've done it, anytime you're on like a webinar, especially if you have a dual monitor set up, you got the webinar going and then all of a sudden something pops over here and you're like, squirrel, and then they go, oh, shoot, I've just missed the last 10, 15 minutes of what was going on. So it's all about that last 3 feet, in my opinion.
No, for sure. So I'm curious, what's your retention at?
My retention's at 89.
89?
We were at 92.
post or pre all these rate increases and stuff like that.
Pre-rate increases, we were at 92.
Okay.
I'm really big about writing good business. I don't want minimum limits, one car auto, liability only. That's I want to have a conversation about your entire household. I want to talk about the gaps that you currently have. I want to make sure that you're properly protected, because when it comes to something happening, I don't want you to come back to me, oh, you never told me that, or I want to walk through the process. I want all of our team members to walk through the process, and our customer service do the same thing.
Yeah.
Hey, things have changed. A lot has changed in the industry. I noticed that we're renewing your policy and you've lowered your limits. You really should bring those back up. I mean, people just don't think about it. They don't get it and they don't think about it, which is, I'm like, Texas minimum limits is 30, 60, 25. Do you know how many cars are driving down the roadway that are more than $25,000? I mean, and if they hit them and total them, I mean, that,
Yeah.
And they're not prepared for that. So, anyway.
Yes. That's a whole other conversation.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So what makes you successful at building COIs and referral business, since 70% of your business is COIs? I know that you're natural at building a relationship, and you probably have met a lot of people. You probably also, I don't know if inherited is the right word, but have you inherited all your dad's like COIs as well?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, because my family's been on that island for 4 generations. So in the island aspect, right, in the town in which
Local
I live.
presence, yeah.
Yeah, a bunch of local presence. So with that being said, there's absolutely some that have transitioned from my dad to me. But to your point, or to answer your question, is you got to show up and take care of them. That's just it. Like when they text you or they call you and, hey, I need some help, I got this, you got to jump right on it.
Yeah.
And by doing that, by default, you're going to be the number one on speed dial. And when you don't do that, they're going to call you out on it.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you do have a situation like where you take your whole team to a CWC event and nobody's in the office and you're like, hey, man, we're just in a unique time. And they get it. They understand it. But it's always being there, showing up, helping them as quickly as humanly possible, because I'm hearing it now. There's people calling, man. I called for a quote 3 days ago. Nobody's called me back.
Unacceptable.
Yeah, it's totally unacceptable.
What's crazy is I'm learning is you also have to just ask for their business. And that's where a lot of people, including myself at times, just don't do, because maybe you feel like you need to continue to water that relationship. And you do, right? You do. You always need to water the relationship.
Agreed.
But recently I'm talking to a buddy that I've never had a one-on-one conversation with him via Zoom. And we're going over something. I know he's a big-time lender in Reno. And I'm involved in their mastermind, right? And so I'm talking to him and I go, oh, and by the way, Trev, I don't know who your insurance person is. I would love to be one of the few people that you or your loan processors send these quotes to. I just want an opportunity to just be on your list. And he's just like, oh, yeah, for sure, dude. You're like, dude, nobody even asks this. He's the one that told me this. He's like, yeah, nobody even asks. He's like, I've just gone with the same 2 people just because I like them. But, now that I think about it, nobody's really ever asked me. So, yeah, I got you. And I'm like, just ask. Everything you said is of course, we have to do all that. But I think sometimes we just are maybe we don't want to be direct, or we're like, oh,
pushy.
Let me just, pushy. It's no, take care of them and then ask. Just send it.
Or they think they're already working with somebody.
Yeah.
And he was working with 2 people, but nobody else has ever asked him. And it's like, hey, I want your business. You know how that shows up, how that resonates with somebody when you're like, hey, I really like you and I'd like to earn your business.
What does it take?
What's the chance I can earn your business?
Yeah.
What's the chance?
And then hit him with the Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance.
Saying there's a chance.
1 in 100,000. Just asking. I think something that's kind of resonating with me lately. What does leadership mean to you? I feel like you're going to provide a great answer for this.
Thank you for that confidence. Leadership is helping your team members be the best that they can be and fostering that opportunity for them to grow, challenging them when they're not working to their full potential, and being their cheerleader and champion. It's showing up, it's being engaged. It's also helping them learn how to grow themselves. And in my opinion, a leader, as soon as somebody gets into a place where they're learning, and Bill Goff used to talk about time vampires all the time. And a time vampire, somebody's like, hey, you got a minute? Hey, you got a minute? Hey, you got a minute? And if somebody does that to you 3 or 4 times a day, they're going to have common courtesy and niceties on the front and the back, right? Hey, Nick, so what's going on? How's family? Blah, 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 blah. Oh, I have a question about X. And then, okay, man, have a great day. What are you all doing for the weekend? You know, it's not just, hey, I have a question about X a lot of times. It's conversation on the front side, conversation on the back side. The biggest switch in a leader, in my opinion, is once somebody has been trained up to where they need to be and they still are asking some of the questions. It's, so tell me where you've researched this. Where have you already looked for the answers before you came to me? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what, in one aspect of a leader, I think that's what a leader does, is kind of push back on their team to help them help themselves figure out their problems and work through them before they come to you.
Yeah.
It's when they come to you, it should be, hey, Nick, I got a question about X. I've already looked here, here, and here, and this is what I found, and I don't feel these answers are right. And you go, you're absolutely right. Those aren't right. You need to go here, and this is why.
Yeah. Yeah, give them a little bit of pushback. One of my early managers in banking did that to me. It drove me nuts. I was like, have you called retail support? And I was just like, you son of a bitch, no, I haven't.
No, I haven't.
Like, damn it.
You know, the other thing a leader does is he learns about, or he or she learn about their team members and what motivates them and what makes them happy and the things they enjoy. So, again, we were discussing earlier about swiping and deploying. I saw another agent had a little things, your favorite little things list, and I swiped that, and I've used that. So I know the go-tos for my team, you know, if I'm going to run out to the store, if it's going to be some kind of snack or particular flowers they like or whatever, just to keep brightening their day. Because the worst number in marketing, leadership, anything is 1. So you can't assume that you're going to do something one time and that's going to fill the energy tank for that team member in a leadership role. It's, you've got to keep going back to them, you know, on a regular basis to, you know, tell them, I appreciate you. I'm thankful you're part of my team. I really like having you here. Now, you can get to an aspect of where, and Craig Wiggins and I was talking about this the other day, when you feel like you're being the cheerleader for a team member every single morning.
Oh, yeah.
And it's almost like, and the analogy we use is, it's like having like a nail in your tire and your tire slowly deflating. And if you're having to go every morning and reinflate that tire, reinflate that tire, reinflate that tire, what are you eventually going to do?
Change the tire.
Get a new tire. So you don't want to get to that point, right? I mean, if you're at that point, it's time for a change. But there is those sporadic and drawn out opportunities of where you got to just out of the blue walk up to them and tell them, I appreciate you. I'm thankful for you. I love having you on my team.
Yeah, that hasn't been the case for my agency lately. We've been underperforming for a couple of months to like what we're used to.
Okay.
And it's like I'm at this particular point right now where it's just like, okay, back to the basics and highly involved in everything and enough of like, I know I provide a lot of the little value pieces, the encouragement, the team outings, the office snacks, the energy drinks. Like I know I provide all of that, and I provide the encouragement, and I make sure that I understand their goals. And at some point, I think that it's necessary in leadership to like, all right, no more Mr. Nice Guy. Like, you know, not like you don't have to be mean, but you need to hold people accountable.
And that's what I'm talking about.
That's it.
Call them out on their bullshit, right? Because it is.
And challenge them.
Challenge them.
Yep.
So if you're not getting the results that you want, and this is one of my favorite quotes, there's only two things in life: excuses and results. And excuses don't matter. And actually, you could do it differently. There's two things in life: excuses and results, and excuses don't matter. So you know what I'm saying? It really is. I mean, either you're going to do it or you're not. The challenge I had with Craig went from 232 pounds to 195 pounds today. So 194 today. And I didn't make excuses. I got the results. I made little changes every single day to make sure that I made that happen. And with your team as a leader, you got to make sure they're doing the little things every day to make it happen. And I give the description when I'm talking to my team as a leader. I'll tell them, I'll say, hey, go look at that door. That door's, 6 foot tall and 3 foot wide. And if you look, there's 3 hinges on that door. And they're about, 5 inches each? Mm-hmm. So on a 6 foot door, there's 15 total inches of hinges holding that door up. So it's those little things that swing the big things in life. The little things make the big interactions happen. So if you're doing those little things each and every day, you're going to swing them big doors and make the big things happen.
Yeah. It's like using an axe, right? Chop a tree. Like, you're not going to chop the tree on a few swipes. It's
right.
Like little hits, little base hits.
You got to back off and resharpen that axe. There's the saying of the 2 woodsmen that were cutting down trees. The one guy was working all day long with the one axe. The other guy would leave in the middle of the day, and then he would come back and he would chop trees down faster than the guy that didn't take a break.
Yep.
And he's like, "What? Why? How are you beating me?" And he's like, "I go home for lunch. I sharpen my axe."
Yep.
So you got to take that time to resharpen your tool. So.
Yeah. No, absolutely. What advice do you have for new agency owners?
Learn it all.
Yeah.
Like drink from that fire hose. Go to every conference that you can. Spend the time that you can networking, learning from others. Take the opportunities to ask everyone, because it doesn't matter if they're a $50 million agency owner or they just started scratch. You can learn from everywhere in between. And I'll give you an example. There was a time where I was in a mastermind group or inner circle group, and I had one gentleman to my left that was a 30-year agent. I had another gentleman to my right that just started 6 months ago, and he's like, I got to figure it out. And we were talking about marketing and trying to present life insurance to our customers and prospects to let them know what we could do. At that time, Allstate had a one-page flyer that would tell you male, female, age range, the amount of life insurance you were going to buy, and what the monthly rates were. The new guy says, yeah, we can order. Back then you could order those for free. He's like, I ordered 1,000 of them. He said, and what I do is I have them in my front desk printer, because we have a lot of walk-in payments. And he goes, they put it in upside down. So when they print the receipt comes out and it has the life insurance information on the back and the receipt's on the front. And he goes, I give that to our clients. They go, oh, I didn't know you do life insurance. So that one idea came from a 6-month agent.
Yeah.
And then the 30-year agent had multiple ideas that he shared as well. But be a sponge.
Yep. Soak
it all up. And do what works for your agency. The hardest thing is the gap analysis, right? So we as agents get into this framework, just me walking around your agency and seeing what you're having in this room in the studio you have. I'm like, wow, I'd love to have that in my office. I've done this and this, and I need to do this. And, you're here in this and everything you have going on. I'm here, and I'm looking at this big gap. Mm-hmm. And that's not what I need to look at. I need to look at here to next year, right? Yeah. And work me to getting me better, me going from O to 1.0 to 2.0 to 3.0 to 4.0, growing me, growing my business, growing my team. So don't get discouraged as a new agent when you're seeing these massive agents crushing it and you're thinking, okay, I want to be there tomorrow. It's not going to happen that fast.
Yep.
Just focus on you.
That comparison thing where you see these agencies putting up 2-3 times the amount of business you're putting up, and you're like, what in the world?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So you definitely, It's a good measuring stick to be able to try to reverse engineer, but you just got to make sure you're viewing it in good context.
Yeah.
Like, okay, these guys have been in the game with me or way longer than me. They have X amount of staff. They're spending this much in marketing.
Oh yeah, nobody.
And you'd be surprised. I've talked to some buddies where when I asked them how much they were spending in marketing, I'm like, well, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not even spending, 1/4 of that.
You're spending $100,000 a month on marketing.
On marketing.
What?
Right.
Yeah.
And so you
have 25 LSPs. What?
Yeah.
I've got 2. No wonder.
I think the part that really, really definitely motivates me in a positive way, there's phases of it where one, it's like, what the, and it's like, how is he crushing me like this, or how is this person crushing me? I think the hardest part is when you and somebody else with very similar timelines, and somebody just starts pulling away from you, and you're like, how in the world is this guy?
What's he doing?
What are they doing?
Yeah. What are they doing?
And so that's, but I think it's always a good measuring stick. That's it.
Agreed.
Just not, don't get emotional about it. Focus on, it's all cliche. Focus on being your best self, because, and that's why I'm pissed right now, because last year we were doing X. This year we're below that.
Right.
So we're not playing to our best selves, and that's
Agreed.
been my message to my team. It's like, don't focus on being better than everybody else. Focus on being your best. Well, that's our best, and we're not there. Mm-hmm. So let's get there first.
Let's get back.
Let's create a new best, because we're not it right now.
And as an agency owner, it's figuring out, how do you motivate them? What makes that happen? A lot of people aren't money motivated, and that's one hard thing I feel personally, most agency owners are money motivated, obviously, because they took the leap to do that.
Yeah.
But you have team members that are like, they want a comfortable place to work. As long as they're making around X number of dollars a year, then, they'll show up 8 o'clock Monday morning and, leave Friday at 5 o'clock and be happier than a pig in a blanket, Yeah. And it's okay. So what motivates them? Well, they might be a Taylor Swift fan and getting them concert. If we get X done, I'm going to get you concert tickets to Taylor Swift, or whatever it is. Find out what their spouse loves to go on weekend trips to wherever.
Well, last question for you, brother, is, and before I ask, I just want to acknowledge you again. Just want to say thank you for sharing this space with us. I can't wait to share this episode, just because I know how much people appreciate you, and they are going to love hearing a little bit more about your story and your journey. So I acknowledge you.
Thank you.
And then the last question is the A1 question, which is basically, A1 is of the highest quality and of the highest standards. And I like to ask everybody, what are 3 standards you live your life by?
First of all, thank you for having me. Thank you for texting me and saying, hey, let's do this, because and I know you, we always want to deliver value. We want to add value to somebody's life, maybe give a different perspective from a different situation. So thank you for allowing me to tell my story, as well as share some of my experiences that hopefully helps a lot of people in their journeys to figure out for themselves what they need to do. The 3 things I live my life by would be, number 1, be honest. There's some hard things in life when you're communicating with somebody, and there's some tough conversations that you have to have. And if that's the way you feel, that's the way you feel, and you need to be honest with those communications. I understand that sometimes you have to get, you get more flies with honey than you do vinegar, so it's tempering the delivery. Number 2 is being present in the moment. For me, when I'm engaged speaking to somebody or in the process, just like you said about when you're on stage, the reason why I sit in the front row every time I go to any conference is I want to be engaged. I don't want to be distracted. And I do want to be that person in the audience that's making that eye connection, that's showing, hey, I hear you. Mm-hmm. I see you. So whenever I'm involved in a conversation with anyone, except for my wife, sometimes she gets mad about it. Sometimes I'll see something happen, a squirrel, but most of the time you'll see me. My goal is to be engaged in that time of us being where our feet are together. And lastly is, man, you know, life is so much of a roller coaster. And we get so focused on winning, doing the best, being involved. We can sometimes lose sight of where we are and how we got here and how far ahead we are than we were before, and lose sight of that time with family and friends. So what I do, my goal is when I'm at the office or at work, I do my best not to think about or get my mind engaged in personal stuff. It's going to happen. It happens to everybody. But I try to keep my focus as much as I possibly can on the business at hand. And then when I'm away from the office, I do everything I can before I leave to try and keep my vision, life, what I got going on, focused on where my feet are. Mm-hmm. Because it's so easy to go back and interchange that. So that would be the three things: the honesty, the being engaged, and being conscious of when you're in that family time, when you're in that relaxed time, downtime, that you're in it. And then when you're in the office, you're in it.
Yeah. And I'm taking in those moments as much as possible.
Especially right now with that baby, man. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah. No,
and they grow so fast, bro.
Yeah, it's already happening. Yeah, it's already happening.
It's funny. I had a lady the other day. She's like, she had a toddler running around. I was like, hey, I'm just letting you know, I just sent my kid off to Texas A&M for his freshman year. She's like, everybody tells me it's going to run fast. I'm like, it goes way fast.
Somebody told me, and I wanted to unread it, but I'm glad I did. But he said, you can't even count to 100. This is like my newborn post. And he's like, you can't even count to 100 before she's putting on lip gloss followed by lipstick. And I was like, oh, God. I was like, don't tell me that. I was like, no. Before you count to 100, I was like, what? I don't want to know that, you know? And so
I would say there is a beauty in what you have that I didn't. So I have an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old. And when my 18-year-old was your child's age, that was back in the day of like digital cameras. Like your phone didn't have, you couldn't do video, you couldn't do pictures. Like you were storing them on like little SD cards, and then you had to keep up with that stuff, or you were taking them to Walgreens to have them print them out, you know, making photo albums, you know.
Right.
So I think that's a blessing for y'all to be able to have those memories like on your phone, to be able to pop up and be able to see that, and you'll be able to treasure those for a long time. So.
Oh, yeah. Then that's another reason why I love putting out content. It's really cool to tell a story, to share conversations like this, to document the journey, because how much would you pay right now if you could have access to an entire YouTube channel of your grandfather or great-grandfather's lives?
Gosh.
How much money would you pay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Pay a lot of money, right?
A lot.
Just to see a documentary of it. Just
agreed.
If there's a camera following him and just that life journey.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why it's really cool, just technology nowadays and what we can pass on to the future. The future we don't even know of yet.
And here's the sad thing I read recently. You only know 3 generations. If you think about it, us as humans, we really only know 3 generations, right?
Yeah. Three humans from now, I think Joe Rogan said it, 3 humans from now will be forgotten.
Exactly. That's
Joe Rogan's,
it might have been Rogan where I heard it, but
Joe Rogan said, like, racism wasn't that long ago. It was 3 humans ago.
That's a big, like, aha moment, kind of like, wow, you know, like my great-grandfather, like, I didn't know him, you know, but my dad knows him, and my dad can share stories of it, you know, so anyway, life is grand, life is great.
Yeah, brother.
It's a blessing to be here and to grow and get better each and every day, and I think, again, connection is key with people like you and I, getting in the same room with people that want to grow and get better. Those environments are what we need to continue to foster.
Yeah,
so
I'm in agreement. Well, bro, how can people find you if they wanted to connect with you? On Facebook, Instagram, TikTok? I know you're on TikTok.
Yeah, I think Facebook and Instagram is I'm Sean O'Donohoe on Facebook. Instagram, I think I'm Sean Odo Irish. I mean, and TikTok, I don't even know my TikTok. That's so funny. I'm too old. Like, that's my problem. Like, I don't even know those all, but I can send them to you and we can put them in the
definitely
in the bottom
sure.
of that. But yeah, I mean, I would love, a lot of times I put on our groups and social medias, I'll put my cell phone number out there. But if anybody, DMs me, I'll definitely reach out and have a conversation. If I can help in any way, even just a conversation, I'm here to do it. So,
awesome.
For sure.
Well, appreciate you, bro. Thank you so much for stopping by, man.
Heck yeah, bro.
All right.
All right, if you guys got some value, like, subscribe, comment, that whole 9. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.